This Thursday, April the 27th at 7:30 at the Winnipeg Art Gallery, Groundswell and Hard Thread Collective present a new song cycle by Manitoba composer Michael Mathews called Bloody Jack. Inspired by the extraordinary life of Manitoba outlaw John Kravchenko, also known as Bloody Jack, this song cycle set to text written by Manitoba poet Dennis Cooley explores the character and the many facets of the environment that created one of Manitoba's most notorious and engaging criminals. The cycle will be performed by soprano Dawn Bruch-Wiens and pianist Laura Lowen in conjunction with imagery by filmmaker Aidan Ritchie and additional insight by poet Dennis Cooley and historian Kristen Troish. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio, I am joined by the composer of Bloody Jack, Michael Mathews, and soprano Dawn Bruch-Wiens. Hi, Michael and Dawn. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm. So this is truly a made in Manitoba production. Before we get to the character of Bloody Jack and the music, I want to talk about the collaborative effort that went into getting this project off the ground. The concert on Thursday is being put on by Groundswell and the Hard Thread Collective, but it is also sponsored by Flipside Opera and the Art Song Collective. I'll get you both to collaborate on the answer. How did these four organizations work together to mount the production of the song cycle? Michael, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, Flipside, I got introduced to Flipside through Dawn, and when we were first putting the song cycle together, we did a preliminary film version of a little bit of it. This was, 2 years ago? Or
2021.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And Flipside co-produced that with us, so that's how we got the connection, rather.
I was on the Manitoba Historical Society's website, and they've got a pretty detailed biography of John Kravchenko. What an interesting character. A quick history lesson here for our listeners. He was born in Romania to Ukrainian parents. They came to Canada when he was 7. He spoke several languages, which gave him the ability to rob banks, not only in English, but in many other languages as well, both here and in Europe as well. He worked as a boxer/wrestler in Australia and as a blacksmith. And by all accounts, he had a terrible temper. I'm going to ask a question of both of you. What is it about his personality and character that you both find so interesting? Dawn, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, Bloody Jack, he was also charismatic. He was a ladies' man.
Mm-hmm.
He was also a new Canadian, which I identify with. My father immigrated from Poland. So I think he's actually relatable. He was trying to make the best of his situation with the skill set he had. So, he did rob banks. He escaped out of jail. He has a very interesting and colorful life, and I think that's why he's so intriguing.
And Michael, how about you? What drew you to the character?
Yeah, all of the things, but for me, really, I got to know about this person through Dennis Cooley's books, a book specifically about him, a collection of poems from 1984, and I have had a long-term relationship with Dennis, setting several of his poems, and this caught my attention, this book, when Dawn and Laura and I started talking about a bigger song cycle. I thought that this had an appeal to it because all of the songs would then have a central focus in this one person.
Yeah, it leads to my next question. It's based on text written by the poet Dennis Cooley, we've had a long relationship with. How did you choose which poems you were going to set to music, and how many songs are in the song cycle in total?
There are 14 songs altogether. Yeah, that's a good question. Choosing poems, I think really by instinct, and what seems to be vocally appropriate, or poems that seem like they're settable, so to speak. But I think instinct really, when you come right down to it, has the most to do with it. It feels right. This poem feels right.
Did his text influence you, influence how you wrote for the piano and voice? I'm just wondering if you were reading the poetry, did it bring on specific moods that you would try to write down and put down on paper?
Absolutely. Each poem has its own mood, but also each poem, the words to the poems direct the setting for the soprano. So, the melody really comes out of the text for me. It has a certain text, words have a certain rhythm, they have a certain cadence, and that cadence for me sends me off in a certain melodic direction.
So you have some idea of what you're going to put down on the paper.
Yep. Yep.
Don, I watched the video that was made about the song cycle that's on Groundswell's site. Michael's music is very haunting and beautiful. For you, learning the music, were there any challenges preparing the song cycle?
Oh, so many. Yes.
Do tell.
It's very difficult repertoire. The music is so nuanced. And Michael pays so much attention to detail in terms of markings and dynamics and word painting. So I think the challenge, yes, is learning, the pitches and getting it together with Laura Lowen, the collaborative pianist on this project. But also the challenge is honoring the music and making sure you do everything what is written. And then as soon as you do it, it totally makes sense. And then it doesn't become a challenge. So it's a very cool process.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed when I was listening to music is there are some pretty vast dynamic contrasts to create these moods. So did you have to work on that as well, to prepare it?
Yes, I think I said this in a previous interview when we released the video 2 years ago, but I feel Michael knows the capabilities of my voice more than I know the capabilities of my voice. So he writes so well for the soprano voice that it's definitely a stretch and a challenge, but I'm glad to rise to the occasion.
Michael, is this going to be the first time the cycle is going to be performed in full?
That's right. Yeah. In fact, it's really the first time when we did the film a couple of years ago. It actually was not performed live. The music on the film was pre-recorded. Dawn and Laura recorded it, and so this will be the first live performance as well as the first full performance of the entire cycle. Yep.
How does that feel for you as a composer?
It's great. It's really exciting, and I've long looked forward to this. So, and I have to say that Dawn and Laura are just absolutely brilliant. It's been a joy to work with them. So I'm really excited.
Amazing. Dawn, this is a big sing for you. As we talked about before, there's these dynamic contrasts, various moods. The cycle explores the very top of your voice as well. There's some nice high notes. Is it going to be singing from beginning to end, or are there going to be some talking points interspersed, talking points by Dennis Cooley and Kristen Troish between specific songs? How's that presentation going to work for you?
So the song cycle is divided up with excerpts of video and images, photographs that abstract photography that Michael has taken. He's also an extraordinary photographer, and so the song cycle does get broken up by these moments of context or images that help it along.
Mm-hmm. So you're not singing there's opportunities for you to rest your voice, right?
Yes. Yeah. And for any sort of concert like this, it's kind of like training for a marathon. You build your stamina. So yes, there's opportunities to rest my voice, but Laura and I have been rehearsing so much that I think we're ready for the big sing.
Mm-hmm. I was watching the interview that you did with my friend Simon Rusnak, and Laura Lowen was on the interview, and she mentioned that the poetry is not just about John Kravchenko. It's sort of about his environment. And she said this great phrase. She said, it's always like Bloody Jack is sort of right around the corner. Michael, is that right?
I think that's exactly right. We were just talking about this the other day at our recording session. The poems are very atmospheric in a lot of ways and evocative, and they're not all directly about him as such, but they're about the time period. They're about general experiences like winter or loneliness or motion, travel, all the common human experiences. And Laura said the other day, it's almost as though he were thinking back about his own life in prison and had these various images that came, some specific, some very general. I think that's a really good description of what it's like.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that struck me about the video was the use of the crow. I know one of the songs is based around the crow, but for me, I was thinking the crow could be sort of another interpretation of Bloody Jack. I mean, this dark character, smart character, intuitive character, right? Can you talk about the importance of the crow?
I think that's absolutely true. The crow is a very powerful symbol for us as humans, and it's a bird, not only because of its color, but because of its intelligence, and we have a lot of evocative imagery associated with the crow. And I think your analogy that might also be seen as a version of him is really right on.
It's just a sort of one of the most cunning birds of all time, with one of the most cunning criminals. When I was prepping for the interview, the other thing I couldn't help thinking was this is purely made in Manitoba. The music is written and performed by Manitoba musicians, set to text by a Manitoba poet about a fascinating Manitoba character. Are there plans to record the entire song cycle to document the creative project?
We're doing that right now. That's what we did that this past weekend, and then we have the next sessions this coming tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday. So we'll have the whole thing recorded.
And available for sale?
Yes, that's the plan. Absolutely. We're looking for a CD release. So.
Amazing. Dawn and Michael, the concert on Thursday sounds like it's going to be just really great. Thanks for taking the time to stop by our Classic 107 studios and talk to me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Mm-hmm. For our Classic 107 listeners, Groundswell's and Hard Threads collective presentation of the song cycle Bloody Jack takes place this Thursday, April the 27th at 7:30 at the Muriel Richardson Auditorium at the Art Gallery. The cost of the concert is pay what you can, how you can. You can find more details by going to classic107.com. I've written an article about the concert, and in the article, I have embedded a direct link to the Groundswell Eventbrite page and have also embedded the promotional video for the project, and you can find more details at classic107.com. Dawn and Michael, thanks again.